Another video. In this video we're going to be looking at commodities and what commodities actually is, because in the restaurant industry knowing what commodities is really important, and it will help you with the basics of knowing the essentials of what to cook with when it goes into the kitchen industry. Alright, so commodities, what is it? Alright, commodities in the culinary space refers to ingredients and products that form the foundation of kitchen operations. They can be anything from fresh produce all the way to consumables such as foil or straw, among others. In the kitchen, there are some basic ingredients that we need to recognize, as it is the foundation of most dishes. As we start to understand these qualities, sourcing and proper use ensuring consistency, flavor and quality in every dish or meal prepared. So let's see what these commodities actually are. Alright. So, protein, alright? Proteins are essential for the development, maintenance and repair of the body because they are one of the building blocks of life. In the culinary arts, they greatly influence texture, flavor and structure and form the basis of many recipes. Proteins can come from both animals and plant-based sources. So let's look exactly what these are. So red meat, venison and offal are often referred to as some vegetables. Alright, they are some vegetables. Alright, poultry and game, obviously, they are animal products. Alright, fish and shellfish, eggs and dairy, and then obviously some of the plant-based things that you get vegetables, grains, legumes, and then plant processed alternatives. Alright, so let's look at some of these components of the animal proteins that we get. Alright, meat is made out of mostly water, proteins, muscle fiber, connective tissue and fat. Red meat is made out of around 60 to 70% of water and helps keep the meat moist and tender during cooking. When cooking meat, water will evaporate, and especially in red meat, the less water there is, the less tough the meat is. The less tougher the meat will be, and the less flavor there will be. Think of a steak being cooked at a medium rare, where the steak will be soft and juicy, whereas a well done steak will be tough and less juicy. Alright, so we know here that meat is made out of 60 to 70% of fat. Alright, so let's look at some of the fats that they are talking about. Number one is collagen. What is collagen? Collagen is a connective tissue found in meat that surrounds the muscle. It unfortunately contributes to the toughness of the meat. Tougher meats such as chuck or brisket, collagen is abundant. The longer collagen is exposed to heat, the more collagen breaks down and in turn starts to tender the meat. This helps to create those rich and hearty stocks and sauces that we know. So we will use that collagen to make a nice stock or a nice sauce, because that juice from the pan that you would get from a steak, you would use that to make a nice sauce, or that fat that you would get from the steak, that you would render down from the steak, you would use that to make a sauce and translate that into the dish, because you want that meaty texture, you want that meatiness to come through in your dish. So that's when we'll use the collagen or that juices from the meat to translate into other dishes as well. The next one is elastin. Elastin is a connective tissue that is found in meat, yet less common in collagen. Elastin does not dissolve easily and in turn makes meat more tougher and chewier. Usually we will either cut out the elastin or avoid the cut altogether. Elastin itself does not contribute towards the tenderness or texture we seek in cooked meat. Alright, so elastin is more tougher, and obviously we wouldn't use it because of its toughness that it has in parts. Alright, the other one is fat. Fat is a vital component in meat, influencing its flavor, texture and cooking performance. We will look into two types of what this fat is. Alright, so the first one is subcutaneous fat. So subcutaneous fat is the type of fat that is seen from the outside of the meat and is seen as the thick white coating of the meat. Whilst cooking, the fat will render out and baste the meat and in turn also protect it from drying out. So this is a continuous fat. Obviously there's a lot of it, so what you would do with it is obviously you would cook it, and the fat will fall off the meat, and what you will then do is you'll then baste the meat, which is you'll cook the meat in its juices, which obviously tenderizes the meat more and makes the meat more juicier, and it avoids it from drying out as well. So that's what subcutaneous fat is used for. The second fat is marble fat. This type of fat is found within the meat itself and infuses into the meat as it melts down during cooking and keeps the meat juicy while adding flavor. Alright, so this type of meat, this type of fat adds flavor, and you can obviously use it in other things, and it imparts flavor in different type of other ways. When you render this fat down, this marble fat, obviously the fat will break down and the juices will come out, and then you can use the juices in other dishes as well. Let's move on to the different type of meats that we will be looking at. Obviously, we've got red meat, venison, and offal. So what are these different kind of meats, or as we call them, different kind of things that we'll find in the meat? So it's obviously red meats such as beef, lamb, and pork are staples in many cuisines, known for their rich flavor and versatility in dishes ranging from roasts to stews, grills, and salads. Venison, referring to the meat of the wild game such as antelope, offers a lean, robustly flavor alternatively to traditional red meats, appealing to health-conscious consumers and gourmet palates alike. So venison, which is obviously a game meat, which comes from antelope, is very lean. The reason why it's very lean is because it doesn't have any fat on it, alright? Other meat that has fat, obviously, is not obviously, as lean, but obviously you get kangaroo, you get veal, you get all those type of meats that are very lean, that don't have a lot of fat, and they are very tender, and they cook very quickly. And this is also a really good staple that a lot of restaurateurs use as well, because it's a really high in protein kind of meat that they love to use and cook in the kitchen. Offal is all about organs, where the kidney, liver, tripe are used. Using offal allows chefs to use the whole animal and not only the meat itself. By using offal, chefs also are able to provide guests with a wide range of flavors and textures. So offal, if you eat mohodu or tripe, that is offal because it's the intestines of the cow. If you eat livers, if you eat cow hearts, if you eat whatever, cow brains or whatever, that is called offal because that is the intestines of the animal, and it's really well known, and it's becoming even more popular by the day because a lot of people are actually considering using it in their dishes because it shows a wide range and versatility in their dishes as well. So offal is becoming more popular, it is becoming used around the world because it shows that you can use the whole animal rather than just the meats that they provide as well. So now we move on to beef. Obviously we know beef comes from cow, so the word beef in the culinary term used from a cow in a large significant source of protein worldwide. Most cattle used by beef industries are steers, castrate male that all over 1 year old, and heifer, a female cow that is not intended for breeding. So those are obviously the different kind of cows that you get. So castrated males are that are over 1 year old, and a heifer is a male cow that is not intended for breeding. So obviously if you're a farmer, you would know all about this, and you'd know exactly the different types of cows for what particular kind of sources as well. And then we go on to the different primary cuts of beef, because one cut of beef is not used for all cuts, for not all dishes. So the primal cuts are the larger pieces of carcasses, cooking in varying degree of doneness, such as roast and steak. Trimmings from breaking down the carcasses are mostly used for minced products like hamburgers and sausages, for example in South Africa, well known boerewors. So the mince will obviously be used as boerewors, or you can use it in a bolognese, you can make burgers, anything else, and then you've got your different other cuts of beef like your chuck, your brisket, your different kind of cuts of beef that you get as well that are used for different kind of things as well. Alright, let's move on to looking at the different kind of cattle, because that's also very important and knowing what type of meat you're using. So the Afrikaner, so first and foremost you get two types of cattle. The number one is Afrikaner cattle, the second one is the Nguni cattle. Alright, so the Afrikaner cattle is being possibly the oldest type of cattle in South Africa, and probably descending from the cattle herder by the Khoisan. With good marbling in their meat, they are favorite in the premium beef market. Alright, so obviously looking here, the Afrikaner meat is obviously used a lot, alright, because it's well known by the Khoisan and it's well known by other people, and it's actually good for cooking, and it's sold all around African markets, or if you're going to a beef market, they would obviously have it there because it is really good produce that you can cook with, right? The second one is the Nguni cattle. Now, the Nguni cattle is a smaller cattle and more robust, while also robust enough for low inputs. Farming systems here meat is lean, making it desirable for health-conscious consumers, alright? So the Nguni cattle obviously has a more leaner, alright, so that means that the meat doesn't have a lot of fat on it, and it's more leaner, and it's more good for health conscious cooking. Like if you want to have meat with less fat, then you will go with the Nguni cattle. If you want beef with a little bit fatty but not too fat, you go with the Afrikaner cattle as well. Alright, so those are the two things that you would distinguish between the two as well. Alright, now let's move on to the second cut of meat that you would find, and that is venison. Now, what is venison? Venison is a meat that comes from young calves who have only been fed either cow's milk or formula milk. They are usually around 4 or 5 months old. Cordon bleu of veal prosciutto is but a few of the recipes that can be made from this type of meat. The meat should be soft and light, pink in color when you select the meat. Alright, so veal, not a lot of fat, but it does have fat in it. When you cook it, you can render it down, you can cook it however way you like, but veal is a really good cut of beef as well. And then obviously you get your pork, which obviously we know it comes from cows. So over the years, pigs have been raised to become leaner and leaner. Pigs are usually culled at the age of 1 year old to preserve its supplements, with nearly every portion of the carcass useful. It is cost effective, yield most edible meat in its relation to feeding expenses. It's vital to cook pork throughout and not at different levels of doneness such as beef. Alright, so pork, obviously if you cook it not fully cooked, you will obviously get sick, because obviously of the stuff that is in it, you would obviously get sick. So obviously cooking pork right through is obviously one of the big suggestions that is required when it comes to cooking pork. Alright, now let's look at the beef. So obviously you get the different types of beef. You get mutton and you get lamb. So we're going to look at some of these differences. Alright, so mutton comes from an older sheep, usually over 2 years old. Then lamb comes from a younger sheep, typically less than a year old. And then hogget is a term used to describe a young sheep that is older than lamb but younger than mutton. It refers specifically to a sheep aged 12 to 24 of years. Alright, so that is exactly what the different stages of the meats that you get. Alright, let's quickly run through some of the seemingly basics that we get. So authenticity, certified as geographic indication, product ensuring it comes from the kangaroo rain, sustainability, which is obviously important, produced using free range environmentally conscious farming methods, and then culinary appeal, celebrated from the tenderness and flavor. Karoo lamb is ideal for roasting, grilling, and the braai. Alright, so those are just some of the cuts of meat that you would find, or some of the meats that you would use, not only in the restaurant industry, but also at home and, around the world where chefs would use them in their restaurants and on dishes as well. So those are just some of the dishes or some of the meats that you find and that people use around the world as well. So that's where I'm going to stop it for now, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I do hope it was impactful, and I do hope that you now know a little bit more about what consumability is and how it is actually impacted in the restaurant industry, and how us as not only home cooks but as chefs, how we can use it, where it comes from, how it can be used, and all those type of things. So I hope it was really insightful and really helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.